Mm. Okay, I'm a little bit early today, 2 minutes. I'm just going to wait until actually 1 o'clock. So for the early people, good afternoon, good morning. No, I guess it's afternoon everywhere. Nope, Alaska, Hawaii, the U.S. Territories. Um, maybe it's your tomorrow, maybe it's your yesterday. So we're just going to wait for 1 o'clock, but I'm happy to be here today. Got to make sure I can put my cup down without dropping it. So just a little chatter before we formally start. So I'm coming from the Blackfeet Reservation today in Montana. It's on the Canadian border, bordering the Eastern Rocky Mountain front, um, which is also includes Glacier National Park. Then we open up into the prairies. So our wind started about 45 minutes ago, and in other parts of the country, when they get the same type of wind, the wind speeds and the gusts that we get, sometimes they board up their houses, but today it's not like that. It's just a nice, gentle change of season gust of wind. So you may hear it flutter in the background, but you may not. Okay, I'm going to start right at 1 o'clock. Today I will be an on-time Indian. That's a joke. We need a lot of jokes during the pandemic. I'm either really early or super early. So that's sort of my modus operandi. Well, it is 1 o'clock, and I would like to welcome you to the Native Wellness Power Hour. And I almost said the Happy Noon Hour, kind of, I don't know, maybe that's like a shout out to all the Muppets out there, in Indian land. But I'd just like to welcome you to the Power Hour today and be very intentional in acknowledging that the Power Hour is supported by the Urban Indian Health Institute today. And every week, I feel very privileged, and I really look forward to spending time with all of you through this connection. And um, I was reminded today about earlier I had a conversation with my mom, and I was telling her, the topic, the hope now, but also really to be mindful that there's um, just like the day has a cycle. We have the sunrise. We well, even before the sunrise, the night sky starts changing. It starts like making its transfer over to the daytime. You have that first early morning light, then you have the sunlight starting to appear on the horizon, and you have the sunrise. We have the different phases of the sun as it makes its way across the sky into the before it starts transitioning to the nighttime, into the evening sky, and then to the nighttime. And so just like that, that's really what when I use the word seasons, I'm really talking about those cycles that have nothing to do with human time. Although we experience, we're companions in that time of the natural world. Um, we've made relationships through them in many of our cultures, through our ceremonies, through our commitments to the care of earth medicines. Many, many ceremonies are conducted to honor the relationship, the agreements that we made to be here on earth. So that's really what I mean, and that I'll talk about today and share with you. And sometimes I can glance down and see the comments, but I do know that um, this week is really a special week during the noon hour. There tomorrow, the 20 uh, the like the 20 power hour, the power hour of the 20s, uh, the age group of the 20s. You know, I could rebrand their hour tomorrow, but they're going to really be talking about finding your voice. And that just doesn't mean like, you know, your voice drops out and you look around for it, you know, in that drawer where you keep everything in your house. It it's really about that connectivity, but please tune in to them tomorrow. And then there's also going to be an episode on parenting. And parenting is for everybody, regardless if you've ever given birth to a child. That's you're a parent sometimes if you've done that, but also people parent all the time. Grown adults parent each other, and some people call it nurturing. And really, that's, you know, that will be tomorrow. And then on Friday, the Native Wellness Institute board will be on the Power Hour. So that's just kind of my little intro to let people join in, however they're connecting today. And because I live in a rural area, I have many means to get on the internet. And I just like to, um, some of the people from the nations from the Iowa Midwest area, you know, they're recovering again from today. They woke up to a very different day. And so the weather changes our lives. We are the recipient of the the dynamic process the earth is going through right now. So I just like to remember them. And I also want to really be intentional. What you hear every week, there's a surprise. So what you hear is my chow pug, and she will continually bark unless I go crack the door another inch so she could squeeze through. So what I'd like you to think about while I'm doing that is that word hope. Because in English, it can mean all sorts of things. But for you, for this short 20 seconds, please think of that word hope and what it means to you. Sorry about that. Or excuse me, that's life, right? During the Zoom dumb that or the internet live dumb that we're all living through. And then you also may see her make an appearance before she's been on the Power Hour, and you hear her lightly snoring. You know, she's kind of like a reminder to stay in the moment for me. So, but when I was thinking about today and, you know, collecting the different memories and stories that I have had from many teachers in my life, but also from really the natural world, the teacher of the that gives us lessons. You know, every time I go outside, I get a lesson. And I was really this morning, I woke up before the sunrise because the sun is right on time, and our day it's getting a little bit shorter, or the daylight hours, they're changing. And so I was really privileged to see that this morning, and I was thinking about um, collecting stories in my mind, gathering. And for those of you, or if you watch my other power hours, or if you've seen me in person, you know I could talk, and that's one of my gifts. I was gifted as a speaker, and I often, as a child, was told by not by adults mainly that I had to corral that ability in. And if I had a question, sometimes as we approach a new school year for many people, many times I just couldn't get it that I had to raise my hand. So I that has been a lifelong, if you want to say, path. Part of my path is to be a speaker, a storyteller, and sometimes I did other streams of work where I was kind of like, when they send the person out with the little white handkerchief in the movies, and sometimes I was that person. And then also sometimes I was given a mission before I left home by people that I worked with that were older than me and had much more experience and were wiser. So sometimes I was sent on a mission in my life. But today I wrote myself some cue cards because I wanted to really focus on the process of living in hope. That much like there's such differences between the Indian world and the non-Indian world, or indigenous, or Picani world, there's a lot of differences. Every tribe has their unique part of the worldview that they're responsible for. And although we share things in common, sometimes during this time where we are all, you know, hopeful that we are living the dream of our ancestors that came before us, that they survived different challenges than us, and we are their hope. So we're living in hope. Somebody somewhere ensured that we all, as a living generation, drew breath, and that our way to reimagine, reconnect in our cultural way of being, that we would have that gift. So when I was thinking about that I am somebody's hope, and you are somebody's hope. They may have lived before you were born. So we are living hope. Everything we do. If you got up this morning, you took care of yourself, you took care of your responsibilities of where you're spending this time at in a household. Maybe it's not your household, maybe you're living with family, maybe you are able some way to go home to your people for a short period of time, or maybe you are, watching from a foreign country. You are in the action of hope every day when you get up and you take care of yourself, the others that depend on you, your responsibilities, whatever they may be. There's a lot of them. I always joke that I have 3 high maintenance res dogs, and they have been my constant companions. They're loving it because sometimes they would have to go to um, Faithful Paws, which is, the regular where I take my res dogs, and they go to like a kennel where they're cared for, and, pet, so they're safe when I would travel. But I am reminded by them to stay in the moment, and also to respect that they are my companions during this time. So thinking of that word hope, one of my hobbies, one of the things I'm always curious about is when a word in the English language changes. Like many of you, if you listen to or read papers, or even Google it, the word indigenous came during popular use during the 1940s. And so when you think of what was happening during that time for that word to start coming about. And it's changed over, even since 1945 or 1948, it's changed. It's been now captured by a lot of um, indigenous people, or how my people say it, Niswitapi, the real people, Niswitapi, the real people. And and they don't mean real like, you know, the original OGs of the earth or something like that. What they mean is they're people who entered into relationship to all the things, like the other parts of creation. And so when I think about that, when I think about those English words, and like if you Google, or you don't have to Google, um, the word hope has went through a lot of different transformations as it's touched other parts of the world, because it is, you know, it has its origins in the European languages. And there were some changes, and the actual of the word hope started to decrease in everyday language use around 1900, 1850. And then it went in a plateau where to use the word hope, it was identified as sometimes as a politicized word, that you use that to bear through an unbearable situation. You know, you have to have hope. You have things that would uses of the word that would minimize experience. So when hope now, to me, I look through it, right, through my indigenous spirit, through my Pekingese spirit, through the cycle of my life now. Um, I use that English word with this intention, is that for me, when I say I have hope, I am declaring an intention to the universe that I don't deny that there are challenges. There were challenges before the pandemic. We moved into the pandemic with those challenges. And just like, you know, you ever been around somebody who hasn't eaten, or maybe they're on one of those diets, the restricted diets, or something, they're making some type of, and they get cranky, or they don't have enough sleep, or, you know, there's a lot of coffee worshipers in Indian country that maybe they didn't have their first cup of coffee. Those types of things collectively, if they're the challenges around healthy families, healthy relationships, safe communities, the freedom to move about on the earth as an indigenous person with a feeling of safety, of assured safety, those challenges are all there. They're here in the pandemic. But my intention when I use that English word hope is that my intention is to aspire to addressing those in a way that assures that not only I make it through this, because that's one of my goals, my personal goal is I'm going to survive the pandemic. I'm going to try my hardest. I'm going to do it the best way I can. But I'm going to survive, because it is still my intention to aspire to a freer, safer way of life for all communities, but for indigenous communities. And so now those are like the big galactic things, right? And then every day I, some people say mindful, mukake, that's how we kind of say, like, you never give up, you use all you can, you ask for help, you collect every resource you have, which means internally to go forward and do the best you can in the best way you can. And in 19, or in the early 2000s, I was a member of this group. And if there's any TP Skins people out there, I want to say, you know, we live on. But we formed this group of an intertribal group, and that was thanks to Dr. LaDonna Blue Eye. That was the acronym that she came up with to kind of say about what we were doing. And that's what we called ourselves, TP Skins. And it was a collection of people that came together to give, if they were researchers, if they were advocates, if they were lawyers, if they were a casino worker, if they were married to a casino worker, if they themselves were maybe a chemical dependency counselor, or you know, grandmother, mother, sister, niece, dogs, everybody came into this movement in Indian country to assure that we protected traditional tobacco use, but we had our inspirations and our intention to start pushing, start inviting commercial tobacco to leave our homes and our nations. And so we came together as a group. And that was when in Indian country, you know, people, the jingle dress, healing dresses, a lot of their materials were the Copenhagen can. There were many people that didn't have access to traditional tobacco, or they didn't know who grew it, or where the seeds were, or that it was even indigenous to the Americas. So at light, I consider it like at light speed, um, or maybe like at Indian relay speed, horse racing speed. I I am still bearing witness to that change that has come, because now I know many traditional tobacco growers. I know seed carriers. I know people that have revived the language around that relationship for their people. And it's happened in less than 20 years, which isn't a long time for something where commercial tobacco came in to our worlds when it was disruptive and it was illegal. After 1883, it was illegal for us to access or practice those ways that ensured you had your traditional tobacco. And we are, the indigenous people are the original caretakers of traditional tobacco. So we had our ceremonial tobacco um, system prior to contact. But the introduction of the chemical tobaccos also came with our trauma, and it helped us get here. So the way that people were figuring out when we formed TP Skins, we were looking at it's helped people heal. Our way helps people heal. The other way brings them illness and sickness. And but yet you use it for the same intention. So I was hopeful when I was at that you know, at that gathering, and we all were just like laughing, and you know, we were so happy to see each other because we recognized each other as coming to the same camp with the same intention for solutions, and to be mindful. And one of our credos, we had t-shirts, we have books. I still have, this is how, I'm not a hoarder, I'm thrifty. This is a TP Skin booklet. So I still use it today. I started using it in January to keep my notes and for activities that I participate in. But really, our other credo during that time was to not cause further harm to our people. And really, our discussions were around that meant that we recognized good people use commercial tobacco. And how do we begin to gather that person and support them and strengthen them so they can make it the best choice for their life? And to recognize they had a path to live, they had a contribution. So for me, that's always, when I think of that word hope, I think of that group of people that we didn't have an end date, but we made a commitment. We aspired and we looked around for other like-hearted people. So during this time, sometimes I was a part of a group last week, and many of the people expressed a desire that they had to take a vacation from social media because they could not, they kind of were buffering themselves against if like the lateral oppression talk, or sometimes I like to say the red on red lateral oppression. That's more like a descriptive, right? You know, it's like indigenous person to indigenous person, you know, scratching around on each other laterally, and the big stuff's happening outside. But I had thought about that, and I had told myself that I needed to take that break because I needed my brain, my body, my spirit. I needed to honor the season that we're all living in, or I'm living in my part of the world, the summer season, the harvesting season, the blooming season, and make sure that I kept up that original agreement that I made a long time ago um, to form a relationship with the traditional medicines. And so I thought of those conversations about the TP skins to cause no further harm, to do our work and our engagements with our communities and our families, our friends, our colleagues, Indian and non-Indian, to cause no further harm. And I also thought about my other people saying they needed a break from this medium. And for me, that's also one of the things that hope means. It means you take that inner wisdom. Maybe somebody shared it with you, and maybe you began to realize it and internalize it. And you make those good decisions. So if you find yourself being scratchy, you know, you take a break. You take a break because your aspiration and your intent, your hope, your dreams, you need to honor those as a full person. Because sometimes people tell you what you should do with your life, and some people, they live their whole life and they follow a different set of instructions. They follow like their inner voice, they follow their dreams. And I was reminded of a story in 1997 that I had with one of our elders here. And um, at that time, I considered him an elder, but he's still an elder. So he's like the eternal elder. You know, I see him all the time. But we had been having contentious discussion. And that's how I'll say it, very contentious discussion. And then we started making jokes. And I learned through that through those encounters in my life, when I wanted to work with people that had greater responsibility than me, or in some way had control, maybe in governance or in law enforcement, that I learned, like in one moment, I could hear voices from other teachers, you know, coming in that moment when I was having that contentious discussion. You have to be diplomatic. And my mother, when I was younger, and I'm talking about like 11, 12, you know, like in my 20s, she used to always say, you have to learn to be more diplomatic. And then when I would later on, I heard elders from the Blackfoot Confederacy say those same things. You must be patient. You must commit. You must commit to the long term, to like the dream of our people that we live on, because that's a never ending dream. So you're always committing to it, but to be diplomatic. So those things, if I say like in my ball of hope this week, you know, I took in the past stories, you know, cause no further harm, be diplomatic, be patient, you know, honoring people that they're having they're having their experience, and I'm not going to qualify it, but some people's experiences, they're walking over rocks right now to continue, and many people are searching for support and for help. So I think I put that in my ball of hope also. And then I had discussions about when I see this come up around for many tribes around the COVID-19 like funds and stuff. There's the people the people need help and they want access to those funds. So I've heard people like say bring up the sort of the illogic of blood quantum into those discussions. I've seen the assumptions about governing bodies. I've seen people during this time carry forth, even going as far as deciding for another tribe who is your member. And I think back to that Teepee Skins group about, we were from all over. There were people from, I also remember the Native Hawaiians, we were at this huge conference and they had put them in their think in the Asian Pacific Islander group. And then once they knew there were First Nations and American Indians and indigenous people from, you know, Central and South America, they kind of reimagined their experience there. And they came and they joined us because they recognized, based upon the wisdom of their people, this is who I connect with. And so those types of experiences, like with the Teepee Skins group, I really think about those a lot now when I see that static on Facebook or static on social media. And that's a small part of the experience. And I think of too a really just like wonderful thing that is happening now in our community, that people are, it's like this time we're sharing has given them the energy to break apart some of those ways that have come into our world as it was speeding up the last 20 years, where there's a lot of food sharing. There is an intent in the community I'm a part of to make sure people are fed. And that is a cultural value that is, it is not written in stone. It holds the galaxy together. Because one of my teachers, he's passed on now, or, you know, he's on the other side. He's probably listening. If I don't say it right, he might pull my hair. But this is what he told me one time when me and my friend, we had went across the border and we had brought food to him and his wife. But we knew it was to his whole family. So when we got there, we lined up everything we had brought. We had stopped at the store, you know, we got on the other side and stuff, but we lined up everything we got. And then it was just like magical. He made um, one phone call to one child, then who started notifying everybody else. And then they started appearing and we started dividing up. So, and visiting with people and you know, it was like really just a wonderful, loving time. And then when we sat down to dinner or to supper with his family, he just turned to us and he said, the greatest gift you can receive is to feed somebody. And I thought about that a lot. And so in our community, people of like-heartedness have put their minds together, and we have been able, now it's on a scheduled base. They have they have a private group on Facebook. They have many ways where through the relatives, people have been making sure, picking up for their relatives who don't have a good vehicle, you know, making sure that people are fed during this time. And we're really gifted that the food we have been given is really super healthy. It's good quality produce, fruit. And every once in a while, because this is, if you ever want to charm a Picanni or a Blackfeet, all you have to say is meat. I don't know if somebody out there wants to make a meat cologne, we'll be wearing it. You know, meat body spray. So, and so we've got meat boxes, but there has been that cultural value that I heard in the 1990s in one of my teachers' house. I've seen it realized during this time. And I just think about collectively what's happening when those gifts of food go out. Because it's to the people. It's so that the people will survive. So, and live good. Know somebody cares about them during this time. And so I put that in my little ball of hope this week too, that I am bearing witness to other hopes and dreams and our cultural way of life getting new breath put into it. And so I think about those teachings and those stories of how people address challenges in the past. And we still have a ways to go. So hope doesn't mean that you deny that there's challenges. It's that you have an intention and you aspire to it through action. And there are many young people I've worked with over this time, but even before, where I was a part of addressing or giving a safe space for people to come in and say, I've had a hard time. I've thought of taking my life. I don't know what to do with my life, that it's unbearable. And recognizing and through hearing those calls for help, for solutions to start emerging, but also for things, the question instead of how did they get to in that condition? What happened that they need this help? That was a different way of using the English language to open up spaces where people began to tell their stories and moved us along that healing path out of the season, if you want to say, of historical trauma and the contemporary legacy of that. Moved us out of a way because people started talking about the challenges and started figuring out how to help all age groups. I was a part of this one conference in one of the Midwestern states, and it was for American Indian, really focusing on younger people, like under the age of like 26. And they wanted to use social media. They wanted to use a text modality to check in with people. And there was a group of people, they all wanted the same thing. They all hoped, right, um, to help people beyond those moments or help them recover after those moments also. And they weren't convinced if you text that it was a, a way to connect. But they were willing to take a chance. They were willing to hear a different way of reaching out to communities and to people and meeting younger people at where they were at. And I think what I've seen also in this time is we've went through at uh, this is, I was watching Star Trek with my sister, so this is where this summary comes from. To go warp speed during the pandemic, to use this medium to continue all those important works for Indigenous people and for our communities during this time. And I think of that group of people that they were coming together and they were going to intervene, offer lifelines, offer support, do campaigns through text messaging. And so I put that in my ball of hope also, because now I see that this medium, people are using it for those intentions. They are starting to say, well, let's adapt our curriculum that we still have to do, or, you know, by a certain date, but also to connect, to make their safe spaces. So I've seen some really inventive, in, uh, really genuine changes happen through this medium during this time. And right before this, I listened to one of our recently elected councilmen give an update so that the people feel heard, so they know they are listening, that the leadership is listening, and to share with us what they're doing to respond during this time. And so that is, to me, like one of the good things that has happened, and that we construct this medium, you know, online, so that all our dreams, our hopes, our intentions, and our aspirations to live better, to live well, to thrive, all those action words, that they are continued during this time. Because not only do we have to worry about like the basics of, you know, how you're going to pay your rent, buy your food, electrical, all of those types of real world things that we have to address, but we are also the caretakers of that hope of the prior generations. And we're also the caretakers of the hope for the future generations that are not born yet. And so I think about, you know, these times. And then I was also, I was having a discussion with myself when they say, what do you want to talk about? And I am so mindful right now of the seasons of the year, that I've seen changes where I live in the last couple of years. And this summer, I noticed changes in the appearance of what we call groundwater or surface water. And I also seen just amazing growth in some of the plants, where I seen a plant that we use that normally it's maybe like 12 to, you know, 16 inches, 14 inches tall, but I seen it grow to like 3 feet. And the only other time I had seen that plant that big was in the geography of what now is called North and South Dakota, and because they're a different type of ecosystem. And I had seen that plant that big in 1994, and but I had never seen our plants, our relative plants of the same family, grow here. So I've seen some changes. And so when I look at the seasons now of how they are developing, and I listen to a podcast, I guess for me, that's one of my, it's like a good book, you know. I've had time to listen to podcasts of people freely storytelling and sharing their wisdom for the human family. So when I was thinking of the season that we're experiencing and the times, is that we have moved. I'm sorry, my pug is going to get, I don't know, she lost one of her babies. But as we prepare, I was thinking about this, that my people started experiencing the pandemic during the last part of the winter. We experienced the calendar first day of spring, or the equinox. And we now are living through the summer season. And we are going to live through the fall equinox and on to the winter solstice. For those were really our markers in our culture and our practices. And those were seasons of when you use knowledge. When the snow came on the ground, it started a whole other part of our cultural systems of knowledge transfer through storytelling. So those seasons are here. They are, if I want to say, they govern really what's going to happen to us, how we are going to move into the future. During this time, and one of the challenges during this time is that we all must do our part to keep good air in our homes, in our environments, in our cities, in our communities, even for our animals. You know, we must keep that good air, that good talk, that good exercise, that good smelling food. Um, I called up, I was asking questions about services at the local IHS. You know, I'll ask anybody a question. And one of the things they asked me is, they said, well, have you noticed a difference in smell and taste? And I was like, no. And then I was thinking about that, and I was like, no, I haven't. Because one thing that I've experienced during this time, and I think it's because the earth has caught a moment when it could catch its breath, is the strength and the vitality of smells of the natural world. Like, I could be driving in my car, or I could be outside, and I will just be like cloaked in the good sense of the earth. And so I think about that also during a season, to be mindful of how you are taking care of your air. And in winter, we undergo changes. In the fall, people undergo changes. And with the air in their house, however they live. And so if I think about the seasons and that ball of hope that I keep filling, that hoop of hope that I keep bringing things into the circle, that's one of the things I think about, is an experience. And I think back to those teachers where I know the plans that I made a commitment through relationship to gather, to make sure that I and have that type of good medicine to help people. And there is no monopoly on good medicine. Wherever you're at, there is good medicine. There is good earth medicine. And there is, I think, right now, um, an intentional examination of how we are keeping ourselves together during this, how you're keeping your hope. So what I'd like, some questions, that I want to just pose to you, um, as sort of like the legacy of my power hour, is how are you keeping good air? And you can interpret that any way you want. How are you keeping good air? Because I also thought about good talk. And long time ago, I met this little, now he's a grown man with his own family and stuff, but he was having a cry, and this is a story I heard. So he was having a cry as a little boy, and he was really crying, and they kept wanting to know, why are you crying? Why are you crying? And he said, because you hurt my bad feelings. And I thought about that's kind of a thermometer of good talk. Is your good talk, is it lifting someone up? Is it staticky? Just how is your good talk? How is your talk during this time? And I also think about, well, in other parts of the country where they have, their temperature only varies like 10 to 15 degrees all year. That's not us up here. So there has been already a lot of winter talk, the first snow talk. And we start to plan, and we look forward during that time to gatherings, sporadic gatherings that we're able to have as communities, and if whether can people go to them. And this year, I'm not sure I will be able to go to those special gatherings during winter because of the border being shut, at the Canada-US border, but also because we're not sure about where we'll be in terms of dealing and claiming victory over the pandemic. So I'm not sure, but I'm going to plan to have those intentional gatherings, either through social media, in person to my safe circle of people I know, or to maybe I'll join a group that has nothing to do. I belong to some groups that, they have nothing to do with pretty much anything except for having a good time and sharing skills. And I also discovered during this time one of my, it's a carryover from winter, but I plan to devote some time to this group. Anybody with a pellet stove, there's a vibrant YouTube community out there. And so anyway, that's one of the things I do. But my question to you is, how are you going to prepare for that fall and winter time to maintain good connections so that your aspiration of finding like-hearted people is strengthened? So what is going to be your plan? And I was also thinking about the importance of, me and my mom were folding t-shirts yesterday, and in the last really 20 years, or longer than that, 30 years, since Indians could spend money on programs, the t-shirt, the hoodie, carries our symbolic history through symbols, through words, through intentions of to aspire to bring well-being to our communities. So we're talking about the importance of the t-shirt. So I'd also like to pose this question to you all out there, because I've been thinking about it myself. What is going to be your victory t-shirt over the pandemic? What is your victory shirt going to show to mark this time? A lot of people make flags. You know, and an Indian flag is different than it's, you know, the other kind of flag, but you can make the other kind of flag. Like, what would be your victory flag for this time, so that your intention is announced? And then what will it look like when you get to the end of this period? What wisdom will you put on there as a symbol? And I was also thinking in terms of, like, you know, I want to, you know, be balanced. So, you know, I mean, go wild out there, men. What would your victory breechcloth for the pandemic be? And women, what would your victory dress be? I mean, some of the ribbon skirts have started to look like, you know, not the Sistine Chapel, but like the res teepee on a skirt. And so what would your victory ribbon skirt for this time, to show that we've made it, to express your hope, your intention, your aspiration for well-being? What would it look like? And so questions sometimes are what I like to suggest to people, because my path, your path, our path collectively, they're meant to intertwine. But just like every tribal nation cares for its membership, cares for its members, cares for its families, we all have a part to care for during this time. And so I'm looking forward to hearing other people's stories, uh, seeing images across, you know, the social media, about their, but what is going to be your victory shirt? There is, one time me and my sister, we were able to go in some of our ancestors' shirts that were taken, you know, their clothing was taken, and it's in a museum in Oxford, England. The shirts, their clothes got to visit us. And the intention that those pieces of clothing were put together to show our idea of the universe, to have the symbols, the color, the sacred colors, the implementation, to honor through different construction, through quills, through hair, uh, the intention to show that that shirt is a symbol of people making it through to victory. And so that really is also, each season has its intention, its bounty. And the seasons that are coming up are critical to everybody. Every day is an important day, but the preparation that needs to be done during this coming time for the next summer. So what is your intention for the next summer beyond this one? And I think many people are preparing to either their children in some ways to, or their grandchildren to engage in the school system. And they're on an unwritten journey. So our experience, if we have attended school, our experience is ours, but to them it's a new experience, and it just is going to be their school experience. And to see the care that people are putting in there. So I also put that in my hoop of hope, um, that I am witness to caring for our communities, to witnessing parenting change in all homes, because now the children are present. And that was how it was prior to contact. The children were always present. And so that's one of the things that I take away from this time. That would be if I made my ribbon skirt or my dress, or if I wanted to be gender neutral, if I made my breechcloth, hey, or my moccasin or my purse. That's something that I have witnessed during this time, that how we were parented and how our parenting was interrupted through the historical experience. Now the children are present again. And we must be